this video, what I want to do is I want to go over the first connective that I want to talk about, which is the conditional. I want to go over the rule that you can use with it, which is modus ponens, or arrow out. Then I want to look at a couple of examples from the book, and then what I want to do is get into a couple of examples from your second quiz. Let's do it. But the first connective that I want to talk about is the notion of the arrow. All right, so this is the conditional statement, just called a conditional for short. Sometimes you'll see it be called an implication or a material implication. That's fine too. Basically, these are if-then statements. Okay, and there are others. There's, like I said, conjunctions or and statements, and disjunctions or statements. We're going to spend the first bit of time here talking about conditionals, if-then statements, and how we translate them into formal language, and also how we deal with them. So I think let's start with an example. If I say something like this, let's work on translating. If I say, if the power is off, then the lights are off. Okay, cool. There are two words in here that let me know. So if I just saw this by itself, there are two words in here that let me know this is a conditional statement. One is the word if, all right, and then there's also the word then. So then it becomes a matter of translating it. So since this is a compound statement, there's actually two statements in here. One is this one. There is just the statement, oh, the power is off. Let's underline power, and that means just saying that the power is off is just P by itself. What does this mean? The power is off. Okay? And there's another statement in here. The lights are off. And let's just underline that one here. We'll say, how do we represent the lights are off? L, based on what I've done here. All right? This stands for, like, so P by itself would just mean the power is off. L by itself would just mean the lights are off. How do we represent this as a conditional? Well, conditionals are if-then statements, and basically it works this way. Whatever follows the, and I'm going to use some peculiar language here. I'm going to say whatever follows the phrase if. I know it's a single word, but I'm going to say that now because when we get to other concepts later on, like the notion of only if, that will make more sense. So I'm just going to say whatever follows the phrase if goes on the left side of the arrow, and whatever follows then goes on the right side of the arrow. So if I said, like, so I'm going to go ahead and draw an arrow here. And I just said whatever follows if goes on the left side of the arrow. So here we've got this. P follows if, so it's going on the left side of the arrow. And then whatever follows then goes on the right side of the arrow. So I'm going to put L. So here, this right here, I'm going to just call it for here, F1. This is our formula we're using right now. So what this says, this P arrow L, it's standing for the English statement, if the power is off, then the lights are off. That's all this means. If the power is off, then the lights are off. And that's really all we're doing with formal logic here. Now we're going to do some other things with this, because sometimes things can be implied, and I'm going to show that here in a moment. So I said here a moment ago that sometimes the aspects can be implied. So I said, if the power is off, then the lights are off. But I use the word then. Sometimes we can take it out and it still works. So like this. So if I said this, if the power is off, that if is still working to let me know, hey, this is a conditional statement, and I'm going to underline the same things. So even though there's not the word then here, the comma here is kind of doing the work of the word then. We can say this. I can say, if the power is off, then the lights are off. But I might not. I might say, if the power is off, then I'll pause, the lights are off. So what do we do with this? Well, like I said, the comma is doing the work of the then there. So it would still be, with this arrow, whatever follows if goes on the left side of the arrow. This would be P. Now, if the power's off, then the lights are off, even though it didn't say the word then there. So even if the word if were not here at all, someone could do this. Someone could say, Power's off, lights are off. How would that be represented? It's actually still a conditional, and it would be this. Just the if is not there in English. Now, you can do it that way. It's a little less clear, and probably on a quiz I wouldn't give you one like that, but it still functions as a conditional statement because the if and the then are implied. So the then's not here. I could have stuck it here. I could have said, oh, then, and the if could be there, or maybe not. Maybe they're not. It's still a conditional statement. Now, for the purposes of a quiz, I'm going to make it as explicit as possible. I'm not going to go out of my way to put things there, or to not put things there to try and confuse you, because I want to focus on clarity on our quizzes here. But you could put it that way in English, and what this does is just simplifies it down. Now, why do we want to simplify it down? Why formalize this stuff? Well, because it lets us do other things to figure out what's going on with the words that we have and reach conclusions that we wouldn't be able to necessarily otherwise. So let's look at the first thing that we can do with arrows and conditional statements. And so the first thing that I'm going to introduce here is a rule. And this rule is called Modus Ponens, or sometimes Modus Ponens. And I'm going to refer to it as arrow out. So that's going to be my shorthand for it. But the rule is technically Modus Ponens, which is a Latin phrase that just means mode or way that affirms by affirming. So mode that affirms by affirming, you don't need to know that, but it's called Modus Ponens, or I'm going to call it arrow out. And it works this way. It just says this. Here's the setup for it. It says if you have the following situation, then you can get the following result. So here's the situation. If you have an arrow, okay, and I'm just going to put A, arrow B, and you have it as, I'm going to stick over here in the right column, this is an assumption. All that means is this is what you've got. And then you also have the left side of the arrow by itself as an assumption. So it just says you got this. Okay, so let's fill some stuff in here. Let's say A stands for, let's do what I did here a moment ago. Let's say A stands for the power is off. And let's say B stands for the lights are off. Okay, let's take those that I had a moment ago and let's plug them in here. If that's the case, if these values are what represent these variables, then what would we get? We would get, okay, if the power's off, then the lights are off. And we're going to say, oh, what this means is you've been given this. It's true, okay? So imagine this is what it's saying. Imagine that if the power's off, then the lights are off. Then you also have, as a separate thing that's been given to you, hey, the power's off. Well, then what do we know? What can we, and this symbol here, it looks like a T on its side, what can we conclude? Well, if it's true that if the power's off, then the lights are off, and it's also true that the power's off, then we know, and we can get here in step 3, hey, the lights are off. That's B. And what I'd say over here in the right column is, hey, that's arrow out. That's the rule here. It means this: if you have a situation where you have an arrow, and then you have a match of the left side, you can get the right side of the arrow by itself as a deduction. And then what you want to say here is, okay, what were the pieces that let you get that? Well, we just cite the rule. If you got an arrow and the left side of the arrow by itself, you just say those. Hey, so I did arrow out on lines 1 and 2, and I was able to conclude this B here, and B stands for the lights are off. So what this means is, again, if the power's off, then the lights are off. If that's true, and also this is true, hey, the power's off, then I can conclude, hey, the lights are off. And this is one of the first deductions. This is one of the most basic rules of inference that we have in logic. If something's true, then this follows. Hey, this is true. Hey, then that follows. And let's take a look at a couple more examples with the same model here. Okay, like I said, this arrow out thing, modus ponens, is one of the simplest kinds of logical deductions. And here's its shape. If you have an arrow and you have a left side match of the arrow, then you can get the right side. So if I just put a little bit more in here as assumptions, just label things. Let's say these are assumptions. That is, what I mean by assumptions here, these are things you've got. Then you can conclude this. So if you've got these as assumptions, you can conclude this via this route. So you know modus ponens from these first two premises here that this is true. And we can plug all kinds of values into A and B. So let's do some others. So like let's say A stands for today is Wednesday. And let's say B stands for tomorrow is Thursday. Okay, this works too. Okay. So if we plugged these values, if A stands for today is Wednesday and B stands for tomorrow is Thursday, here's what we've got. Line 1 here would say, if, because of that arrow, if today is Wednesday, then tomorrow is Tuesday. Okay, let's take that one down. Let's say we've got that. If today is Tuesday, then tomorrow is, if today is Wednesday, then tomorrow is Thursday. Okay, and we've also got separately, hey, by the way, today's Wednesday. Then what do we know? We know this. Tomorrow is Thursday. How do we know that? Modus ponens, arrow out, from these first two lines. Okay, we know this from this and this put together. And so modus ponens is the shape. Arrow out is the shape. Again, if you've got an arrow, you got a left side match. So if you have an arrow, so first of all, what you should do is look for an arrow and see what's the left side of the arrow. If you have a match to the left side of the arrow by itself, that means you can get this right side and stick it by itself. That's something that you can deduce. So we're going to look at a couple more examples of where we can employ this, and we're going to see what else we can do with this information. So what I want to do now is look at a couple of pieces from the book, and I'm going to get out of some copyright claims here on YouTube. I'm going to refer to the book as the book. And we're going to look at number 1, A through F. Number 1 is on pages 20 through 21. And so here we're just translating stuff. We're putting stuff into formal notation. Now, whereas I have done things a while ago where I was underlining stuff. So I was saying things like, if today is Wednesday. If I was saying something like that, I might say this, then tomorrow is Thursday. And I said something like that would be, alright, that would be W arrow T. Okay? If today's Wednesday, then tomorrow's Thursday. What we're going to do is we're going to do some stuff out of the book and see if we can translate it. Not just if. I'm confident that we can. What do we have? Well, the first one I see here is this, and this is again on page 20. It says, if I die for Islam, then I go to paradise. Now, whereas I've been underlining things, the author of your textbook just puts them in all caps. So it says this, if I die for Islam, then I go to paradise. Well, that one would be, there's an arrow. Anytime we see an if then, we can go ahead and stick an arrow. And whatever follows if goes on the left side of the arrow. So it says, if I die for Islam, then I go to paradise. Alright? If I die for Islam, then I go to paradise. Our next one, B, says, if the oceans die, we die. Well, that's an arrow. If the oceans die, we die. That's what that one would be. The third one, if ticket is lost, regular toll from the farthest point will be collected. Now notice this one, it has the word if, but it doesn't have the word then. So this one, if the oceans die, remember whatever follows if goes on, whatever follows if ticket is lost, that goes on the left side of the arrow. So whatever's left is going to go on the right side of the arrow. In this case, regular toll from the farthest point will be collected. C. D. Ooh, this one's a little bit different. So look at it. It says some 7,000 employees of Southern Bell in Dade County would be affected if a nationwide strike of Bell Systems workers goes into effect. Well, that's still an arrow, but here the order in which it was given in English is a little different. It says some 7,000 employees of Southern Bell in Dade County would be affected if, there's the if, a nationwide strike of Bell Systems workers goes into effect. So here, like I said, it's still consistent. Whenever follows the word if goes on the left side of the arrow. So what follows the word if here is a nationwide strike goes into effect. If this happens, then some 7,000 employees of Southern Bell in Dade County would be affected. So in spite of the order in English being kind of backwards, whatever follows if goes on the left side of the arrow. E. It says this, and this is a quote from Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister of the UK. I am extraordinarily patient, provided I get my own way in the end. Oh, this one doesn't say the word if. Well, here, the word provided is a substitute for the word if. So if that's the case, so provided is another example of something that means if. And we'll see a few more examples of that. Provided I get my own way in the end, then I'm extraordinarily patient. And then here, F. Should the Dolphins qualify as a runner-up team, they will play at Cleveland Christmas weekend. Well, the word should is another example of a synonym for if. Not should in a moral sense, like should you do this, but should like if this should happen. You see there, I had the word if in there, so I'm going to stick an arrow there, and whatever follows the word should goes on the left side of the arrow. In this case, should the Dolphins qualify, then what will happen is they will play Cleveland Christmas weekend. Let's take a look at a few more in number 1 on page 21. All right, let's take a look at the next 3. G, H, and I. G says San Diego can clinch the AFC West crown by beating Denver in their final game. The by here, the word by, is the substitute for the word if. So we're going to take that, and whatever follows that is on the left side of the arrow. So we know it's an arrow, and we know this one's going to be an arrow. All these are going to be arrows, conditional statements. Whatever follows the if here, in this case the by, goes on the left side of the arrow. So again, G says San Diego can clinch the AFC West crown by beating Denver in their final game. So if they beat Denver in their final game, then they can clinch the AFC West crown. H says, had the stowaway refused to obey, the pilot would have used the blaster. That comma there, that first of all, that had means if in this case. And then there's a comma in there, which means the then. So, in other words, I could say, if the stowaway had refused to obey, then the pilot would have used the blaster. And so that would be this. And then finally here, I. As long as it's fair, I'm going to win the job. So the as long as also means, in this case, if. So as long as it's fair, if it's fair, then I'm going to win the job. That's what this one would be. Now the next few here, J, K, and L, are a little bit different. And here we have to review the concept of statements being dyadic and well-formed. Let's take a look. Okay, now for number J on page, or 1J on page 21, we've got this. If the axioms could be, so that word if, I'm going to go ahead and stop there and stick an arrow. Okay, because if there's that, whatever follows if goes on the left side of the arrow. It says, if the axioms could be so selected that they were necessarily true, then if. Oh, there's another arrow. Alright, so whatever follows the first if goes on the left side of the first arrow here. So if the axioms could be so selected, so A is going here. If the axioms could be so selected that they were necessarily true, then if the deductions, so deductions is going on the left side of this arrow, then the truth of the theorems could be guaranteed. So we've got this now. We've got A, arrow, D, arrow, T. So this one's new. It's got 3 components, 3 constituent components, not 2. So what that means is here, when we look at this, we've translated it, is this done? The answer is no. It's not. Why? Because one of the things I said about these formulae is that they need to be dyadic. That is, they need to be 2-ish. They need to have a left side and a right. This is 3-ish. It's got 1 part, 2 part, 3 part. So what we're going to have to introduce here in order to finish this off is we're going to need parentheses to group them together. So I'm going to give you a cheat for this. Basically, it's going to work this way. If ever you see this pattern, if ... then if. Okay, as we did here, we saw this. It said, if the axioms could be so selected that they were necessarily true, then if. Right there. That means that this has a heavy right side. That means everything following the first if actually goes together. So how do we represent that? We're going to put parentheses here and here. So now this is dyadic. This is the left side, this A here, and this is the right. So whenever you see this pattern, if, then if, that means you've got a heavy right. This is still dyadic now. It's got three components, but it's dyadic. This is the left. If this, then this stuff. That's how it works. Okay, now if you see another pattern, if you see this, if, then, so this means you've got a heavy right. Sometimes you can have a heavy left. Like you could have a pattern where you've got this. You could have arrow where it's got a heavy left, and then arrow, and then something over here. What do we do in that situation, or what yields that situation? It's basically this. You see this. If, and then you'll see later, if all the preceding, or if all of the above, so if you see if all the preceding, then if you see this pattern on the other hand, that means you've got a heavy left. All right, so we're going to look at a couple more examples here with K and L and see if this pops up. So let's do that now. So now let's look at K. It says this: if you have a specific question, we will relay it to him if he calls in. So this one's a bit tricky, and I don't think I give you one like this on a quiz, but here's what it says: if you have a specific question. So remember, whatever follows if goes on the left side of the arrow. So if you have a specific question, then what? And it says this: we will relay it to him if he calls in. So it's kind of backwards, but there's the other if hiding there, which means here's another arrow, and we need to put parentheses here on the right side. So in other words, if you have a question, then if he calls in, we will relay it to him. And so it works this way, the heavy right side. Let's take a look at L now. If U.S. Shipyard's own bid to acquire the property fails, the company would be interested in a lease so long as the payments are reasonable. So here again, the first word is if, which means we know there's an arrow. And what do we have following it? If their bid to acquire the property fails, then what? The company would be interested in a lease so long as. So that so long as is another if, which means this is also another heavy right side. A little bit more ambiguous here. But so whatever follows so as long as, which also means if, would go on the left side of the arrow. So that would be R. Payments are reasonable. Then they'd be interested in a lease. So what this one is saying is, if their bid to acquire the property fails, then if the payments are reasonable, they'd be willing to do a lease. They'd be interested in a lease. So here's the shorthand version of this. And here's what I'd want you to know for a quiz. Basically, if you see this pattern, if, well, and I'm going to put some letters in here. If you see if A, then if B, then C. If you see this pattern, if, then if. That means you've got A arrow, B arrow, C. Heavy right side. So it's still two-ish. Here's the left side. Here's the right side. The right side is heavy if you see this pattern. If, then if. So let's look at when we could have a heavy left. If you saw something like this, if A, then B. And then it stopped there and said, if all of the preceding, or it could say if all of the above. Okay, if it says if all of the preceding or something like that, then C. What that means is you have this pattern. You have if A and B, and then all of the above. What's all of the above here? All the preceding. If you have all this, then you can get C. So if you see this pattern, you'll have a heavy left side. So this is the left, and this is the right. So it's still dyadic, left and right. This, on the other hand, if you see if A, then if B, and then C, something like that, this is the left side, and this is the right side. This is a heavy right pattern, and this is a heavy left pattern. Okay, I'll give you a couple more examples of this as well as we get to the quiz, because these examples here in the book are a little bit more ambiguous than I'd like, but we'll be looking at some other concrete ones here shortly. The next problem from the book that I want to work on is number 3. Now, number 3 doesn't have to do with the translation stuff. So what I was just doing a moment ago is the translation stuff, putting things into formal language that were formerly in English. Here with number 3, we have how we're going to take these logical statements that are formalized, what can we do with them? And so the book does them in a particular way, but I'm going to do them in the way that you're going to see them on your quiz. And as we continue to do some quizzes, you're going to have a little bit more to do on your own. So I'm going to set it up here the way it's going to appear on your second quiz. All right, so let's take a look at, and this is on page 21. Let's start with 3A. And there's the way the book has it, and there's the way that I'm going to do it. So first of all, the way the book has it, I'm not going to do it exactly. I'm going to do it this way. Line 1, it says this. You got A arrow B. Okay? That's an assumption. Line 2 says you've got B arrow, heavy right side, C arrow D. That's an assumption. And then you've also got A by itself. That's an assumption. And here's where I'm going to stop. I'm going to say the book is not entirely clear about this, but here's what I want to say. And here's how I'm going to give you problems. This is all the stuff you've been given. With this stuff, I want you to find this. And so when I say find this, this is the thing to solve for. So I'm going to stick this little symbol I just wrote here that looks like a T that fell to its left side. This means solve for this. Solve for or get C arrow D. This is the mission. Get this. Okay? So use the skills that you have to get this thing. This is it. Like, you get this, you're done. And you say this, you get this, and you say how you got it, you're done. Well, how do I get that? So I've got this stuff, sure. How do I get this? Well, like I said, we've got one move right now. So this is like, I play a lot of like RPGs, and when you start off with like really simple, stupid equipment, like, here's your bronze sword, use this to slash. And then later on you get more sophisticated. That's the way this class is going to work. Later on you're going to have a bunch of moves that you can do to defeat these problems. And I think if you think of it that way, that actually helps. So this is your one move, arrow out. And it works this way. You got an arrow, and you got a left side match. Okay, so here's an arrow. You got an arrow, you got a left side match. So here's the arrow. Look for arrows. Look, all right, so do I have an arrow, and look what the left side of it is. Do I have a match of the left side by itself? If you do, ding, 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 then you can get the right side by itself. So if I had like A arrow B, and I have a match to the left side, if I have A, this is like the key that unlocks the right side. That means you can get this. That's what arrow out is. So I'm going to see if I can apply that methodology here, and then see if I can finally get the mission. The end goal is get this thing, C arrow D. So let's do it. The first thing you want to do when you look at a problem, so here's we've got these 3 things given, is first of all, look for any and all arrows that are not in parentheses. Because, like, for example, there's an arrow here, it's in parentheses. That means it's locked off. Don't even bother with it. Like, this is its own separate thing. You can't get in there. There's no way to get into parentheses. So right now, to start, let's just look and see, are there any arrows not in parentheses? Well, yeah, there are 2. There's this one. Okay, and this A arrow B, and there's this one for this B arrow C arrow D. Okay, so here's what I can do. I'm going to apply this rule. This rule is called Modus Ponens, arrow out. I'm going to see, do I have an arrow somewhere? I'll look at its left side. Do I have a left side match? If I have a left side match, that's like a key that unlocks the right side by itself. So for example, if I look at line 2 here, line 2, here's the arrow not in parentheses. What's on the left side of the arrow? B. Do I have a B somewhere here by itself? Nope. There is no line that's just B by itself. So I can't unlock anything from here. All right, here's another arrow that I have. Its left side is A. So if I had an A, then I can unlock its right side. Do I have an A anywhere by itself? Yeah. Line 3, right here. So what this means is, here I've got the left side of this arrow. This can be used to unlock the right side of its arrow, and that's what arrow out or modus ponens is. If you have an arrow, and you have a match to the left side, then you can get out the right side. So that means in line 4, I can say here, hey, I can totally get B. Now what I need to do is over here, I need to say the reason why. Well, what move did we just use? We've only got one move, arrow out. And arrow out is the move where if you have a left side, if you have an arrow and you have a left side match, you can totally get the right side out. So we can say we did that. We just want to say now, what pieces did we use to get there? Well, hey, I used this one. Line 1 is where there was the arrow, and line 3 was where there was the left side match. So bam. This is how I tabulate. Where did this B come from? Hey, I used this on lines 1 and 3. Cool. Now that I've gotten this thing, I want to start from the beginning again. I want to look, okay, I've got this thing now. Now what I want to look at is, again, do I have any arrows and do I have a left side match? So let's look again. Do I have any arrows? Yes, I've got this one. Do I have a left side match? Yeah, I already did that one. Do I have any other arrows? Not in parentheses. Oh, I've got this one. This one right here is another arrow I've had since the beginning. What's its left side? Its left side is B. Is there a left side match anywhere? Yeah, in line 4. And what that means is, according to this rule here, if you have an arrow and you have a left side match, then that unlocks the right side. So take a look at this arrow. Here, its left side is B. I have a left side match. That means I can unlock its right side. Now, its right side is a little bit bigger, but it's in parentheses. That means when I unlock it, it's going to be freed from these parentheses that are here. So check this out. Look, since I have this arrow, and here's its left side, I have a left side match. That means I can unlock its right side, and it will be free from the parentheses because it will be all by itself when I do it. That means I can get C arrow D. Now what move did I do here? The only move that I can do, arrow out. Where was the arrow that I used according to this model? Line 2. Where was the left side match? Line 4. So check it out. I got C arrow D because here what line 2 was, I had this left side, I had a left side match which allowed me to unlock the right side of the arrow. So I got this. And I said earlier that was the exact thing I wanted to unlock or eventually get. So we did it. That's our first problem. Let's move on to here to 3B. All right, 3B, we've got this. It says this. All right, line 1, it gives us E arrow F. That's assumption number 1. Assumption number 2, it gives us, in parentheses, E arrow F, arrow E. And it's not super clear from the book, but I'm just going to go ahead and say the thing that we want to get here is F by itself. If you're like, well, why? I'm just telling you that's what it is. The book's not clear here. I'm just telling you that's what you need to get. Get F by itself. Like, that's the mission for this problem. You get F by itself, and you can say Y here in the right column. You're done. So I said first step, what we're going to do here is we're going to look for what arrows do we have that are not in parentheses. On line 1, we've got this one here. There's an arrow not in parentheses. And here, oh, there's another arrow that's in parentheses, so I'm going to ignore it. We've got this. Here's another arrow not in parentheses. Now, for either one of these, do we have a match of the left side? So let's look at the first arrow. The first arrow here, we got E arrow F. Is there, the left side is E. Do we have an E somewhere by itself? Nope. So we can't use that one. Let's take a look at this one now. So this one, the left side of the arrow is itself E arrow F. Do I have an E arrow F anywhere? Yeah, in line 1. So even though it's bigger than the last problem we saw, this right here is the left side match to this. What that means is we can unlock this. So what we end up getting here in line 3 is we can say, hey, we can get E. How? Well, we got an arrow here. Its left side is E arrow F. We got a match. That means this is like the key that unlocks this to get to the right side. So we can say, hey, we got that. How? The only move we got right now. arrow out. Where was the arrow that we used? Line 2. Where was the left side match? Line 1. Okay, so again, where was the arrow that we used? We used this. Its left side was E, arrow F. Its match by itself was in line 1. So we got E. Now remember, we're going after F by itself, so we're not done. So now that this is here, we start the process over again. Are there any arrows that I have that I haven't used yet? Well, the one in line 2 we've already used, so let's not worry about it. Line 1 here, we got E, arrow F. Alright, so its left side is E. Do I have an E somewhere by itself? Yeah, in line 3, the one that we just got. So what this means is, because the pattern for arrow out is this. You got an arrow, you got a left side match, you can totally get the right side. Okay, if this, then that. We got it, so we'll get it. Okay, like I said, like if today is Tuesday, then tomorrow's Wednesday. It's Tuesday, we got tomorrow's Wednesday. It works. So look at this. We got a left side match here. That means we can get the right side out. Hence the arrow out. So that means in line 4 we can say, hey, we got F. Because here we had an arrow, we had a left side match, we can get the right side out. So then we just say what we did. We did arrow out. Where was the arrow that we used? Line 1. Where was the left side match? Line 3. And this is exactly what we're trying to go after, which means this problem is done. Let's take a look now at 3C. All right, now let's take a look at 3C. So for 3C, and this is also on page 21, we've got this. All right, here's what's been given to us, the way that I would give it to you on a quiz. We've got line 1, this. We've got, all right, a lot of parentheses going on here. We got G, arrow, H, close parentheses, arrow, I, arrow, J. All right, that's our first assumption. And then for our line 2, we've got G, arrow, H. Second assumption. Then third assumption, we've got I by itself. And then I'm just going to say this. Now, it's not quite as clear in the book, but I'm just going to say do this here. This will make more sense later on. So what we're trying to solve for in this problem, we want to get, our mission is over when we get J by itself. That's the mission. Okay, get J. So that's what, again, that sideways T there means get this thing. So here's the mission. Get this J by itself. You do that, you prove how you gotten it, you're golden. So let's take what we know. Remember, the move that we've got is arrow out, Modus Ponens. All right, and so the way that works is you got this pattern. You get an arrow, you get a left side match, you can totally get the right side. And that's fine, that's the way it works. Let's see where we got that here. So now let's take a look at this problem. Do we have any arrows not in parentheses? So right now I see 4 arrows. Here, 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 and here. Let me make that I a little bit clearer. So we got here, 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 and here. What I'm going to hone in on is where are the arrows that are not in parentheses. This one. And this one. So there's 2 arrows that I want to look at. Here's one not in parentheses. Here's one not in parentheses. Now I want to look at their left sides and see do I have a match. Let's start with this one actually. Line 2. This one says G, arrow, H. So take a look at the G here. Do I have a G anywhere by itself? Nope. So I can't use this one. So this arrow, the left side of the arrow is G, arrow, H. Now do I have a G, arrow, H anywhere? Yeah, line 2. So this lines right up. Like, look, this is the same thing as this, which means this is a match for this, and that's going to unlock the right side. So what that means, I can say here in line 4, hey, I get I, arrow, J, and since I have a match, it's going to unlock it from these parentheses. I get I, arrow, J. How? The one move we got, arrow out. Where was the arrow that we used? Hey, that was in line 1. Where was the left side match? Line 2. Because there it is. Here's the arrow. Its left side was G, arrow, H. Where was its match? Line 2. That means I can unlock I, arrow, J. And since it's no longer connected to the rest of this stuff, I don't need to keep it in parentheses. So it's unlocked. I got I, arrow, J now. Now remember, I'm after J, so this problem's not done. So then what I want to do is I want to look again. What arrows do I have that are not in parentheses? So this one, well, I've already used it. This one, I haven't used it, except, I mean, I kind of used it here, but I haven't found like a G match. And then I've got this new one here that I've got. I, arrow, J. So do I have any new ones where I have a new arrow and a left side match. So do I have a new left side match for this one? Well, that hasn't changed. I already used that one. Okay. This one itself, do I have a left side match somewhere? Do I have a G by itself? No. Okay, and then this new one that I just got, it's I arrow J. Do I have a left side match for I? I do here in line 3. So what that means is when I have a left side match, according to this pattern, Modus Ponens arrow out, if I've got an arrow, and I've got a left side match, that unlocks the right side. The right side here would be J. So I get J, and I say how I did it. I got arrow out. Where was the arrow that I used? The arrow that I used was in line 4. Where was its left side match? Line 3. And I got it. That's J. And also, that's what I was trying to get, so that means I'm done. Let's take a look now at 3D, top of page 22. Alright, now on the top of page 22, let's take a look at 3D. So 3D gives us a lot more. So alright, from the outset, we got the following things. Line 1, we got K arrow L. That's assumption number 1. Line 2, we got M by itself, assumption number 2. Line 3, we've got L arrow N, assumption. Line 4, we've got M arrow K. That's an assumption. And then I'm going to say here, it may not be clear exactly, but I'm going to say what I want you to do is I'm going to say, hey, solve for N. Get N by itself. So there it is. If we can get that thing by itself, we're golden. So then we follow the following rules. We try to employ the following pattern. So we got, this is the one rule we've got, Modus Ponens, arrow out, you got this. Okay, you got an arrow, you got a left side match, you unlock the right side. So let's see, first of all, do I have any arrows here? Not in parentheses. I got 3 this time. This one, and this one. So first of all, look at these 3 left sides. I got a left side here, K, left side here, L, and a left side here, M. Do I have any matches? That is, do I have a K by itself? No. Do I have an L by itself? No. Do I have an M by itself? Yes, there it is. So this match unlocks this right side, which means in line 5 here I can say, oh, I've got K. How? This move, arrow out. Where was the arrow that I used? What line was it? It was line 4. Where was the left side match? Line 2. So now I got a K. So now with this K here, let's try the same thing again. Is this the left side match anywhere? Actually, yeah, way here at the top in line 1. This is now the left side match to this, which means I've unlocked the L. So I can say, hey, I got L. How? What move? The only other move we got. Arrow out. Where was the arrow? The arrow was in line 1. Where was its left side match that unlocked it? Line 5. Okay, now remember, we're after N, so we're not done yet because we haven't found N. So now let's do this. Now with this L here, is it a left side match anywhere? Yeah, with line 3. Look, we got L arrow N. We just got the left side match, which means this is going to unlock N. And N was the thing we were after in the first place. But let's say how we got it. Don't celebrate too soon. Let's say how we got it. We used this move. We used arrow out. Where was the arrow that we used? We used line 3. And where was its left side match? Line 6. So now with the 4 assumptions that I had, I got to the thing that I was supposed to prove, and I did it only by employing this arrow out along the way. So now what we're going to do next is we're going to combine the skills. So here these are like what we're doing here. These are proofs. Okay, you might remember proofs from geometry or some other kinds of mathematics that you took in the past, but these are logical proofs. What we're going to do is we're going to combine this now with the translation that we were doing earlier. Okay, like if I die for Islam, like one of those examples here. We're going to combine those things together, and can we translate stuff into formal notation and then solve for it? That's going to be the goal. We'll do that next. So now we're going to combine our skills. We're going to do translation stuff with deductive stuff together. So number 4, you'll notice on page 22, it has an italicized version. I'm going to kind of ignore that. We're going to look at the version underneath it. It says this. And here's how we're going to translate an argument. So far we've been translating, we were doing number 1 a moment ago, we were just translating statements by themselves. Now we're going to be translating arguments. So the way arguments work is we're going to number them as we go through them, and we're going to figure out which one is the conclusion, the one that we're trying to prove. So it says this. The first sentence says, Papa John's uses better ingredients. When it gets to a period, that means that's it. That's the first assumption. So what we got here, it's a simple statement. Papa John's uses better ingredients. Now, in the book, it's all uppercase. For ingredients, that means we're going to take the first letter of that word, and that is our first statement. So this is Papa John's uses better ingredients. That's just going to be I, and that's an assumption. So the next sentence should be the second one. So it says this: if so, if what is so? If I is so. So if this thing is so. Now, it doesn't say it explicitly here in the book, and I'm not going to do that to you on a quiz. But if so, if what? If this thing that's already been said is so, then what? Papa John's makes a better pizza. Assumption number 2. Then it uses this word, therefore. And that word therefore means this is the conclusion. This is the thing that we're solving for. So I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, hey, you got this. Papa John's uses better ingredients. If they use better ingredients, then they make a better pizza. Solve for, they make a better pizza. That doesn't mean that it's true. We're just going to see if the argument is valid. So let's take what we know and see if we can figure this out. Now we're going to combine our skills. So first of all, now that it's all been translated, let's see, do we have any arrows? Not in parentheses. Yeah, we do. We got this one right here. Okay, so we got an arrow. Its left side is I. Do we have a left side match? We do, by itself. This means, again, because the one rule that we're using is this: if you got an arrow, you get a left side match, then you can get the right side. We got an arrow. Its left side is I. We have a left side match. And this means we can get P. How do we do that? Arrow out. Where was the arrow that we used? Line 2. Where was the left side match? Line 1. Hey, we did it. We were trying to solve for P. We got it. This is done. Let's move on to number 5. Now, the starred problems are also in the back of the book, I want to say. Sometimes the starred problems, the author of your textbook will do them a little bit differently than I would do them. Here early on, they're pretty similar. All right, number 5, we've got this. It says this. Line 1. My name is on the lease. Okay, that's a simple statement. My name is on the lease. Assumption. Line 2. If so, if what is so? Well, if my name is on the lease. Could be clear. Okay, if my name is on the lease, then the apartment is mine. Second assumption. Third assumption. If the apartment is mine, now, the author of your textbook does not recapitalize the letter. I would say it again. All right, but here, even though they don't do that, if the apartment is mine, then what? Then I have the right to tell Curtis to turn down the volume. Assumption number 3. And so then from here it says it follows that. That means it follows that. It's kind of like the therefore. It means here's the thing that we're solving for. It follows that. So what are we solving for? It follows that I have the right to tell Curtis to lower the volume. So here's the setup. We've done all the formalization setup. Now let's deduce. So what we do once we've done the translating, we're going to do, the mission is get this, get R. I have the right to tell him to lower the volume. Let's now see, do I have any arrows not in parentheses? I got one here, and I got one here. Now, do I have any left side matches? Do I have a left side match to this one? Nope. Do I have a left side match to this one? Yeah, I do. This one here, N arrow M. I have a left side match with line 1. That's a left side match, which means I'm going to unlock this M. So let's do that here. I can say in line 4, hey, I can totally get M. What move am I using? Arrow out. Where was the arrow I used? Line 2. Where was the left side match? Line 1. Because again, I'm using this pattern. If you got an arrow and you got a left side match, then you can get out the right side. So if you got an arrow and you got a left side match, you can get out the right side. We did that here. Now, since we did this, start over back at the beginning. Now with this new thing here, do I have a new left side match? Well, do I have a left side match? Here's an arrow. Do I have a left side match here? Yeah, that's one I already used. Here, I have another arrow that I didn't have a left side match on a moment ago. Do I have a left side match now? Yes, I do. This is M arrow R. Now I have a left side match for M, which means I can unlock the R. So I'm going to do that. And say, hey, I get R. How did I do that? I used the one move that we got. Where was the arrow that I used? Line 3. Where was the left side match? Line 4. And this thing here, R, is the thing I was trying to solve for in the first place. So this problem is done. Let's take a look at the next one. Okay, number 6 actually doesn't have anything for us to translate this time. It's another just problem by itself. So let's go ahead and write it out. So line number 1 is A. That's an assumption. Line number 2 is B. That's an assumption. Line number 3 is going to be A arrow, B arrow, C. That's an assumption. And then what we want to solve for is just C by itself. I know that because that's what it says. And so remember, the only move that we've got is this move. If you got an arrow, you get a left side match, you can get the right side of the arrow. That's what we're using. Right, that's our only move right now. We'll get a bunch more moves later on, but this is our only move right now. So then when we look at this, the first thing we want to do is see, do I have any arrows not in parentheses? We got one right there. Do I have a left side match? I do, which means I can unlock the right side here, which in this case is in parentheses, which means it's going to get unlocked when I release it. So here we got an arrow, left side match. We get the right side out. What do we get? We get B arrow C, unlocked from its parentheses. What move did we use? Arrow out. Where was the arrow? Line 3. Where was the left side match? Line 1. Now what we do, again, after every move, look and see, do I have any new arrows not in parentheses? Now, this is fresh. Not in parentheses. All right, look at it. New arrow. Its left side is B. Do I have a left side match? Yeah, in line 2. Which means if I have an arrow and have a left side match, I can get out its right side, which in this case is C. So I can say, hey, I get C. How did I get it? The one move I've got, arrow out. Where was the arrow? Line 4. Where was its left side match? Line 2. And hey, that was the thing I was supposed to solve for. I was supposed to solve for C. I got C. This problem is done. Let's take a look at number 7. All right, let's take a look at number 7. 7's another one where it's not a translation, we've just got a problem to solve. So let's look. Line 1 here is just A arrow B. Then we get line 2 is just A. These are our assumptions, the things we were given, and we're supposed to solve for here just B by itself. And we got the one move that we've got in play, which is arrow out, which works this way. You got an arrow, you get a left side match, you get the right side. Let's see how this one works. So here, do I have any arrows not in parentheses? This one. Okay, this one's in parentheses, so I can't use it. I'm going to ignore it right now. So what I'm going to look for is this arrow here. Do I have a left side match? Yeah, I do. The left side of this arrow is A. I got the match right here. That means I'm going to be able to unlock this and free it from its parentheses. So I get A arrow B. Where was the, I did arrow out there. Where was the arrow I used? Line 1. Where was its left side match? Line 2. Do I have any new arrows? This one. Okay. So I got this arrow. Do I have a left side match? Yeah, in line 2. Now wait a minute, you might be thinking, I already used line 2. Well, each line you can use infinite times. They do not exhaust. There's not like a limit, like, oh, I already used this one once, I can't use it again. At least here, like, you can use it as many times. They have infinite uses. You don't need to worry about running out of it. So, but here, I have the arrow, I have a left side match. It's the same match as before, it just unlocks something new. And that means this. I got an arrow, left side match. I unlock the right side. The right side here is B. So I'm going to be able to get B. Line 4, I can say, hey, I got B. How did I do that? Arrow out. Where was the arrow that I used? This time it was line 3. Where was the left side match? Line 2. And this B that I got here is the thing that I was supposed to solve for. So I am done. Let's take a look at number 8. All right, let's take a look at number 8. Here we're back to translating again. So we got this argument from Winnie the Pooh. It says, hey, there's a rabbit hole here. That's a simple statement, no ifs or thens or anything like that in there. So that's just, there's a rabbit hole here. Assumption. Line number 2. Okay. A rabbit hole means that there's a rabbit nearby. Now that's confusing language, but here's what's going on here. It's saying, if there's a rabbit hole nearby, I wouldn't do this to you. If there's a rabbit hole nearby, then that means that there's a rabbit nearby. Okay, that's assumption number 2. Number 3, if there's a rabbit hole nearby, then that means that there's company around. Assumption. And if there's company around, that means that there's food available, as Winnie the Pooh is totally into. Thus, and that word thus there means that this is the conclusion. Thus, there's food available, so prove that there's food available. Okay, and so we got one move that we've got. This one, arrow out. You got an arrow, you got left side match, and you can get the right side out. So let's see. Oh, this time we got 3 arrows, not in parentheses to start. We got this one, and this one. Do we have left side matches for any of these? Is there a C by itself? No. R by itself? No. H by itself? Yes. So this here, this unlocks this, which means we can get out the right side, which means we get R. We did our one move, arrow out. Where was the arrow that we used? Line 2. Where was its left side match? Line 1. Okay. Now with this here, rinse and repeat. Do we have a left side match now? Yeah, actually, yeah. Here in line 3, we had R, arrow, C. Now with this R here that we just got, we have a left side match, which means we're going to unlock the C. So we get C. What move did we do? Arrow out. Where was the arrow? Line 3. Where was the left side match? Line 5. Okay, and now that we've got this C, can we do another left side match, another arrow out? Yeah. This is the left side of this, which means since we have this arrow here and we've got a left side match, we unlock the F. Okay, so unlock F, that means arrow out. Where was the arrow that we used? Line 4. Where was the left side match? 6. And this F here, there's food available. That's what we're trying to solve for. We proved it. If these assumptions are true, food is definitely available. Now let's move on to number 9. Right, number 9. Number 9 is a little bit more complicated because of the first line. It says this: if we buy a piano, then we'll go broke if we also install air conditioning. If we also install air conditioning. Now this one has that pattern I talked about before. If, then if. Now when we see that, that means you're going to have 2 arrows, and it's going to be heavy on the right side, all right, in order to make it dyadic. So that means following the first if, we've got if we buy a piano. So this, I know it's going to be this, line 1, piano. If we buy a piano, then if, which means we're going to have all this following. What follows the second if? Then we'll go broke if we also install an air conditioner. Now the wording here is a little bit backwards, but it says basically, if we buy a piano, then if we install an air conditioner, then what? We'll go broke. Yay. That's assumption number 1. Assumption number 2. Okay. If we buy a piano, then we'll have to get an air conditioning system. Okay, and this is because, and I know this because my father is a classical pianist. Pianos, being stringed instruments, are very particular when it comes to temperature and moisture. If you have, and you might even see, I have a couple of stringed instruments in the background. If they get too hot, the strings will warp. If they get too cold, the strings will warp. So you're gonna have a string instrument, especially like a piano, basically a giant harp made of wood with keys. It's going to mess up if the temperature gets too hot or too cold. So you're going to need an air conditioner, especially if you live somewhere hot. So this, P arrow A, assumption number 2. Then, assumption number 3, we are buying a piano, which means P is happening. All right, assumption number 3. So, and that word so there means here's what we're solving for. We will go broke. So we're solving for, we're going to go broke. Now here again, only one move in play. We've got this move. We've got an arrow. We've got a left side match. Then you can get the right side. Okay. So let's look and see, first of all, do we have any arrows not in parentheses? We got this one here. We got this one here. This one here. It's in parentheses, so it doesn't count. All right, it's locked. We can't use it. So for this one, do we have any left side matches to this one? Yeah. Do we have any left side matches to this one? Also, yeah. We got the same left side match. Does it matter which one then we unlock first? Actually, no. So in logic, the way it works is if you can do something, you can do it. It doesn't matter the order. Now what I like to do is at least start from the top. So here, I have a left side match here. Again, I also have a left side match here. I'm going to start with this one. So this one says, if I got this arrow, then I get this. Do I have a left side match? Yes. So that means I'm going to unlock the right side here. The right side here was a little bit more complicated, but now it's going to be freed from its parentheses. So I can say line 4, hey, I got A arrow B. How? Well, I did arrow out, and I used my arrow on line 1, and it's left side match on line 3. So this is a new arrow I've got. All right, now do I have a left side match for it anywhere? No, but I've already had the left side match here for line 2. So I remember, I already used line 3. Again, they have infinite uses. They do not expire. So I've got a left side match here, which means I can unlock this, and I get A. Arrow out. Where was the arrow I used? Line 2. Where was its left side match? Also line 3. Okay, and then go back to the top again. Do I have any arrows? Well, this one I got a while ago. Do I have a left side match for it? I do. What does it get me? It unlocks the B. That was what I was trying to get in the first place. So I just say, how did I get it? Arrow out. Where was the arrow that I used? Line 4. Where was its left side match? Line 5. And so we're going to go broke. That's that. So now we're going to look at numbers 10 and 11, neither of which we have to translate, but they're a little bit more sophisticated in terms of the proof. Let's take a look at those. All right, now let's take a look at number 10. Like I said, number 10 is another one where we don't have to do any translating. We just have to do some proving and some deduction. But let's see what we've got. So here, line 1 is going to be C arrow D. All that's in parentheses. Arrow E. And that's assumption number 1. Assumption number 2 is going to be E arrow C. And then assumption number 3 is going to be C arrow D. So that's what we've been given. And then it says, all right, if you got these 3 things, all right, with this, get solve for just D by itself. Get this. All right, so let's take a look at what we've got. Now remember, the one rule we have in place that we can use is this one. You got an arrow, you got a left side match, then you can get the right side. And again, that's arrow out, Modus Ponens. So let's see what we got. Let's take a look and see, do we have any arrows not in parentheses? Well, there's an arrow here, but it's in parentheses, so I'm not going to, it's locked. Ignore it. So we've got 3 here that are unlocked. So let's take a look at these. This one, do I have a C anywhere by itself, like on a line? No. This one, do I have an E anywhere on a line by itself? No. Well, this one, the left side of the arrow is C arrow D, like a complete thing. Do I have C arrow D anywhere? I do, in line 3. It's a little bit bigger, but it's still a left side match that fits into this, which means it's going to unlock this. So I'm able to get E. How so? Arrow out. Where was the arrow that I used? Line 1. Where was the left side match? Line 3. Like I said, it's a little bit bigger, but it still works the exact same way. All right, and again, after you do a move, go back to the beginning and see if you can do another one. Can I do another arrow out? Do I have another left side match? Well, yeah, if I look at line 2 here, I've got this E arrow C. Here, the left side is E. I just got an E. So now I have a left side match for this one, which means now I can unlock a C. How did I do that? Arrow out. Where was the arrow? 2. Where was the left side match? Line 4. So that one's good. And then now with, can I do any others? Have I gotten the D yet, first of all? No. Can I do any others? Yeah, this one. I have an arrow. Its left side is C. I have a left side match. That means I can unlock here this D. I used the arrow out there. Where was the arrow? Line 3. There was the left side match. Line 5. And I'm done. I was able to get what I was supposed to get. And I said how I got it. That's what this right column again is over here. Let's take a look now at number 11. All right, let's get into number 11. So number 11, this is also on page 23. We got our first line here. It is also a lot of parentheses going on. We got F arrow G in parentheses, arrow G arrow H. And that's our first assumption. Line 2, we've got F arrow G, not in parentheses, assumption. And line 3, we just got F by itself. Okay, so those are our 3 assumptions. And then we've got that get this symbol, and what we're trying to get is just H by itself. All right, we do that, we're done. Okay, and remember the one move we have in place, again, we've got this. Modus Ponens, arrow out, you got an arrow, you get a left side match, you can totally get the right side by itself. So let's start by seeing if we can do that by saying, do we have any arrows not in parentheses? Well, that one's in parentheses, so it doesn't count. That one's in parentheses, so it doesn't count. So this one, that one's free to use. So is this one. Okay, free to use. Now, do I have any left side matches here? And the answer is I actually have 2 that I can do right now. So look at this arrow. Its left side is F arrow G. Do I have that somewhere by itself? I do, actually, in line 2. And then if I look at line 2, it itself is F arrow G. Do I have a left side match for this? I do in line 3. So which one should I do first? In a certain sense, it really doesn't matter. I can do either one. Now, what I prefer to do is the ones that are at the top first. I like to get those out of the way, so that's what I'm going to do. But if you can do a thing in logic, it doesn't matter when you do it, as long as you can. So here I'm going to start with this. I got this arrow. Its left side is F arrow G. I have the left side match in line 2, F arrow G. So what that's going to do, since I have a left side match here, it's going to unlock the right side, which in this case is going to be G arrow H. And I'm going to be able to unlock that and free it from its parentheses when I unlock it. So I get G arrow H. How did I get it? Arrow out. Where was the arrow? The one that I used was in line 1. Its left side match was in line 2. Okay, so this is now a new arrow that I have, not in parentheses. Doesn't look like I can do anything with it yet. I don't have a left side match. I don't have a G anywhere by itself. But I already knew that I had this other one that I could have done, and I could have started with this one. So I could have done this one first, but let's see what we get. We got an arrow, left side match. The left side is F. We got a left side match, also F. That means we can unlock G. So let's go ahead and get that. We unlock G. Arrow out. The arrow was in line 2. Oh, we already used line 2. Doesn't matter. Every line has infinite uses. And then its left side match was in 3. Okay, and now that I've completed a step, I want to see, can I do any more? Well, I have that arrow that I got a moment ago. Its left side is G, and a moment ago I didn't have a left side match for G, but now I do, which means since I have an arrow and its left side is G and I have a left side match, I can unlock its right side, which is H. So I'm going to get H here. How'd I get that? Arrow out. Where was the arrow that I used? Line 4. Where was its left side match? Line 5. And this one now also is done. So now we've completed number 11. So these were ones out of the book. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to look at a couple of problems that are actually going to be on quiz 2. Because the ones in the book, I think, frankly, sometimes because of the editing and the way the author does things, it's not as straightforward as what I'm going to do on quiz 2. So we've basically done 3 things. We did some translations where we took some stuff that was in English and we put it into formal language. We, like in number 11 here, we just solved straight up proofs based on the one thing that we know, which is arrow out. And then we did a few, like number 4, where we combined those skills together. We took the stuff that we know with translating, and we took the stuff that we know with deduction, and we put them together. So your quiz 2, is going to have each of those elements on there. And so what I want to do next is show you a couple from quiz 2. Basically, I'm going to give you a couple of freebies for quiz 2, where you can see what's on there, what that's going to look like, exactly what the problems are going to look like on quiz 2. So let's take a look at that next. Alright, so the next thing I want to do here is get into a couple of sample questions from quiz 2. There's actually 4 here. Now remember, the way that quiz 2, quiz 3, quiz 4, a lot of these quizzes are going to work is, yeah, they're out of 100 points, but sometimes they'll have 130, 140, 150 points available. So on this one, like quiz 2 is going to be 13 questions. It's going to be worth 130 points out of 100. So there's some bonus points already embedded into the quiz. And the bonus questions aren't any more difficult than the regular ones. It just means there's more stuff available. Because I think with my view is with logic, I think you should have a little bit more, like stuff with math. I think you should have a little bit more of some room to make some errors without them being punitive, rather than it's punishing you for it. So here are the sample questions, and these are going to be up on Blackboard too. If you look under the quizzes folder, you'll find like a quiz prep, and so this is quiz 2, quiz prep here. Here's a couple of examples. When Barad-dûr is defeated, Elisar shall become king of Gondor in the south. If all the preceding, the kingdom of Arnor will be reestablished in the north. That's an example of one you just need to translate. The second one, if Darth Vader is Luke's father, then if Luke is Leia's brother, Leia is Vader's daughter. Another example of a translation. The next one is going to be an example of a translation into a proof. If you're going to the store, then if you got enough cash, you can also pick up some avocados. Okay, so that's one line. There's more. You're going to the store. Third line, you've got enough cash. So we see the word so. That means this is the conclusion. You can pick up some avocados. So there's 3 premises here and 1 conclusion. Not only do I want you to translate it, I want you to solve for it. So the first 2 that I have here, these are examples, are just straight up translations. The third one here is an example of a translation into a proof. And then also you'll have ones like number 4 here, where these are ones that you just need to translate. Like here is the proof as it is, what I want you to do is translate it, or not translate it, but to prove it and to complete it. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Let's go through all 4 of these to get prepped up for quiz 2. So what I've got here are, these are 4 sample questions from, or sample problems from quiz 2. The first 2 are just straight up translations. The third one is a translation into the proof, and a fourth one is just a straight up proof, okay, where you just basically need to fill in the blanks that are missing. So here, like, what happens in line 4? What do you get? What do you get in line 5? And then how did you get there at lines 4, 5, and 6 in the right column? So I'm going to do these 4 here in a moment, and this document is something that can be found under the quiz prep folder in Blackboard. So I want you to look at it there, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to solve these problems, because these are ones not out of the book, but they're like ones in the book. If you can do the ones in the book, that I've already gone over, then you can totally do these. But this is an example of what some of the problems are going to look like. And so, like I said, pull up that document on Blackboard and have that handy, because I'm going to be mainly showing you how to do it while I'm referring to these. But this is what they look like. Let's go ahead and take a look at these now. Again, the first 2 are translations. You're going to have a couple of problems like that. The third one is a translation into a proof. You're going to have a few like that. And then the fourth one here is just a straight up proof. Just solve for it as it is. You'll have problems like these. Let's go ahead and get to that here. All right, let's take a look at the first sample one that I had. This one says, when Barad-dûr is defeated, Elisar shall become king of Gondor in the south. If all the preceding, the kingdom of Arnor will be reestablished in the north. So this one's just a straight up translation, and there's only one period in here right at the end. So that means this is one line. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to translate this, and you'll have other problems like this on the quiz. So this one, look, we can see there are 3 things that are going to be capitalized, or 3 parts. There's this line, Barad-dûr. Also, there's this line with Gondor, and then there's this line with Arnor. So let's see if we can figure it out. It says, when Barad-dûr is defeated, comma. Okay, so when is another word that can mean if. So let's keep that in mind. So that means right there, that means when we see if, that means that there's going to be an arrow. In fact, on this quiz, there's going to be nothing but arrows. Let's do it anyway. So let's get an arrow, and whatever follows if goes on the left side of the arrow. So Barad-dûr, that's one word, that's going to be B. So if this happens, then what? Then Elisar shall become king of all Gondor in the south. That's G. So if this, then that. And then it says this phrase, if all of the preceding. Now I told you what that means. That is, remember, if we have an if, then if structure, that means you got 2 arrows and you're going to have a heavy right. Okay, that's one thing. The other kind of structure that you can have is actually like what you see here. If you have a if, then, and then later you have if all of the above, or if all the preceding, as we have here. What that means is that you've got 2 arrows, and it's a heavy left. The parentheses are going to be on the left. So that's exactly what's going to happen here, because we see that. So we see if all the preceding, okay, so if, when Barad-dûr is defeated, then Elisar will be the king of Gondor. If all this happens, then Arnor will be reestablished in the north. So that's this one. Now, if I put the parentheses the other way, if I put this is wrong. And what this says is this. When Barad-dûr is defeated, then if Elisar becomes the king of Gondor, then the kingdom of Arnor will be reestablished. But that's not what it says. It says this one. And because of that, if all the preceding language, that means this is going to be heavy on the left, not heavy on the right. Let's take a look at the next one that I had in the sampler. Alright, this next one says this. If Darth Vader is Luke's father, then if Luke is Leia's brother, Leia is Vader's daughter. So let's take a look at the shape here. So the first word we see is if. That means we're going to have an arrow. And since we have 3 letters, there's going to be a V, there's going to be a B, and there's going to be a D. So there's 3 actual simple statements here being put into a compound. Whatever follows if goes on the left side of the arrow. So if Darth Vader is Luke's father, well, that means this. Okay? Then if. Now that structure, it's the other one. A moment ago I said we had a heavy left because we had if all the preceding. This one, the then if, means that there's a heavy right. So that means there's going to be parentheses on the right side and another arrow in there. And whatever follows that if goes on the left side of the arrow. So it says this. Then if Luke is Leia's brother, Leia is Vader's daughter. So for this one, because of the if then if language, it means that we have this shape. We have two arrows with a heavy right. So this is the right side here, this is the left side here. Now, there's a certain sense in which this other one here might also be true, but that's not what it said. So this one would have said, if Darth Vader is Luke's father, then Luke is Leia's brother, and if all the preceding, then Leia is Vader's daughter. It's not that that one's untrue, it's just that's not what the language says here, which is why this one is correct. Now let's take a look at the next one where we need to both translate and solve the proof. Alright, let's take a look at this one now. If you're going to the store, then if you got enough cash, you can pick up some avocados. Alright, that's the first line. Then there's the second line. You're going to the store. Third line, you've got enough cash. And then we see that word so. That word so means this is the conclusion. This is the thing we're solving for. So we're going to do this one line at a time. So line number one. If you're going to the store, then if. Now look, we've got here that language. There's the if, then if. That's the same structure we saw a minute ago. That means there's two arrows, and it's heavy on the right. Period. That's what if, then if. That pattern, that's what it means. So then whatever follows the first if, you're going to the store, that goes on the left side of the arrow. Whatever follows the second if, you got enough cash, that goes on the left side of the second arrow. And then whatever's left, you can pick up avocado. So what this is saying is, if you're going to the store, then if you got enough cash, you can pick up some avocados. That's the first assumption. Okay? Then we've got this one. Second assumption. You're going to the store. There's no ifs or thens in there. That one's simple. You're just going to the store. Assumption number two. Third line. You've got enough cash. No ifs and thens in there. That's just straight up cash. Okay? So these are the three assumptions. And then we've got so. And what that word so means is this is what you're solving for. So here's the conclusion. We want to get, you can pick up some avocados. It's also simple. So we're solving for just A by itself. Okay? So now, everything's translated. What we're going to do now is solve this proof, not just translate it. That's half the work. Now, even though that's half the work on this one, and this one's got a little bit more work, all the problems on quiz 2 have the exact same weight. So no problem is worth more than another. Sometimes people are better at translation, sometimes people are better at proofs, sometimes people are better at these combo ones. They're all worth exactly the same. Okay? So the one rule we've got in play here is we've got our arrow out modus ponens, which says you got an arrow, you got a left side match, you can get the right side. So in order to do this, the first step is to see, do I have any arrows here not in parentheses? Yep, this one. Okay, there's an arrow here, but it is in parentheses, so I'm going to ignore it. Do I have a left side match? Yes, I do. So here's my arrow, left side match, which means I unlock this C arrow A. It's a little bit bigger, but it doesn't matter. I can unlock it, and that's going to unlock it from its parentheses as well. That's arrow out. Where was the arrow? Line 1. Where was the left side match? Line 2. Okay, now, I just got a new arrow. So here's this one, now freed from the parentheses. Does it have a left side match? Well, its left side is C. Do I have a left side match to this? Yeah, line 3, which means I can unlock this A. So I can say, hey, I got A. How did I get that? Arrow out. Where was the arrow that I used? It was in line 4. Where was its left side match? Line 3. And hey, that's the thing I was trying to solve for, which means that this one's done. This is it. It's both, we translated it, this means that it's valid. All right. If it's all true that if you're going to the store, then you get enough cash, you can also pick up some avocados. You're going to the store, you got enough cash, you can pick up avocados. This doesn't mean you are going to pick up avocados, it just means that you can. That's the validity of the argument there. So finally, let's take a look at the last sample from quiz 2, which is just a straight up proof, no translating. All right, here I'm going to give you this one the way that you're going to see it on quiz 2. So the straight up proofs, it's going to basically be laid out for you like this. On quiz 3, that will not be the case, but for quiz 2, the straight up proofs will be laid out like this, where everything's all lined up. Basically, you just need to fill in what to do. So you're going to be done by line 6, and you're going to solve D. That's what you're going to do. Now, the translation into proof, like the one we just did, that one you'll have to lay it out, but you'll have the framework in problems like this to be able to do so. So for this, it's already laid out. Like we know we're going to be done on line 6, so basically we need to just figure out like how do we get line 6, how do we get line 5, how do we get line 4, and what do we get for line 4 and line 5. And so just go through, again, the one thing we've got in place is our one move, arrow out. You got an arrow, you got a left side match, you can get the right side. We're going to do that here. So first of all, let's see, do we have any arrows not in parentheses? That one is in parentheses, so we're going to ignore it. So we got this one, and this one. So the first question is, do I have a left side match for any of these? Do I have a C by itself? No. Do I have an E by itself? No. Do I have a C arrow D by itself? Yes, I do, down here in line 3. So this is a match for this, which means it's going to unlock the E. So I'm going to go ahead and say that. We unlock the E. How do we get it? We did arrow out. What was the arrow that we used? Line 1, left side match was in line 3. Now with the E here, do we have a left side match that's new? Yeah, actually line 2 has E arrow C. This would be the left side match for this, so that's going to unlock C. So that's going to be arrow out. Where was the arrow that we used? Line 2. Where was the left side match? Line 4. And then now we think, oh, we did it. We got to D. Yeah, but we didn't say how we got it. So that's what we got to do here in these problems. How would we get the D? Well, here we have an arrow in line 3, C arrow D. Do we have a left side match for it? Yeah, we got C. So that would unlock D. So how would we get it? That would be arrow out. The arrow that we used was on line 3. The left side match was on line 5. So this is another example of a problem that you'd have on quiz 2. You're going to have a few more problems like this. But otherwise, that's it. As long as you can do arrow out and you can translate if-then statements and recognize if you have the if-then-if shape, that means you're going to have a heavy right. So you put the parentheses there. And if you have a if blah, 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 if all of the preceding, then you're going to have a heavy left. You're good. That's really all you need to know for quiz 2.